اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين سيما بقية الله الأعظم روحي وأرواح العالمين له الفداء. When we want to understand life, we need to use the right faculties that we have. When we don't use the right faculties, then we will misunderstand it or we will not comprehend it. You know, there are certain faculties that we all have, certain powers that we all have, and we need to use the correct power to understand life. For example, we have the power of intellect. This is a God-given power that we all have. Everyone has it. Intellect or aql is a part of every human being. And hence it's a power that Allah has given us. For example, He has given, there's another power that we have is the power of anger. Do you know that anger is a power that we have? Anger. It's God-given. Allah has given that power to us. Another power that we have is the power of passion or shahwat. Shahwat is a God-given power. Allah has given it to us. And it is one of the characteristics of us being a human being. Now what happens is that we use these characteristics, these powers that we have. If the kids can come up in the front, you know, all these guys. Yes, if you all can, the kids, can them in the front? Yes. Seems like that. Okay, that's right, it's right. There you go. Okay, and spread out. There you go. Now send the salawats. So what happens is that Allah has given us these characteristics, these powers, so that we can use them to grow. Each of these powers has a positive side and a negative side. And that the balance of that is what makes us a complete human being, a better human being. For example, aql. You know, if you look at aql or intellect, you'll see that, for example, the positive side of aql is that we become wise, we become smart. And the negative side of aql is that we become cunning, like in sense of an evil connotation. That's also aql, but it is the wrong side. Or for example, you have anger. Anger, when it goes to the positive side, becomes courage, which a person can use to go forward in his faith. And in the negative side, it becomes cowardice. When you don't have it, it becomes cowardice. And hence anger is something that's necessary for us. And so there are four powers Allah has given all of human beings. One is intellect. The second is passion, shahwat. The third is anger. And the fourth one is imagination. We have a power that is known as imagination. Now, when we look at imagination, you will see that this imagination that we have is a power that we have to comprehend things, to understand things, certain things, not everything, certain things. Aql is there to understand certain things, and imagination is there to understand certain different things. Intellect is used to understand things that are concrete, things that are certain. For example, you want to understand 1 + 1 is 2. You don't use your imagination for it, you use your intellect for it. You use your intellect for that. Now, in order for you to use imagination, you don't use it for this purpose. We need to understand why Allah gave us imagination for. You know what is imagination used for? You have a power, you all do. But it's just that as adults, we are discouraged to use it. Because someone who uses imagination as an adult is looked upon as someone who is, you can say, daydreaming, irresponsible. People who speaks carelessly. Because when you speak of imagination, for example, a person who's living in his dreams, I want to achieve this, I want to have this. When you look at that, and a person like that, when you meet someone like that, he says, oh, this person is always dreaming. You know, he's not living in a world of reality. Now, when you look at certain things, and because of the fact that we don't use imagination, there's certain things we don't comprehend and we don't believe in. Now, let me give an introduction to that. I'm not going to give a lot of speech today because we're already late, so I am going to end in 15 minutes. And we'll end on time. But from tomorrow, inshallah, I will explain in detail because we won't have the extra programs that we had today, right? We will do something else. But right now, I just want to give this introduction so that we can move forward because we want to understand what life is. And I told you how important it is to understand life because none of us know what life is. I can assure you, none of you know what life is because you have never heard it. You heard it in different angles, but you never heard it. And what I told you before, if a person knows what life is, then everything, every idea in his mind changes about everything that he has an idea about. Every opinion of yours will change if you know what life is. And that's why what we want to know. And in order to know that, you need to use the power that Allah has given you. And that power is the power of imagination. As children, when you are a child, for parents, when you have little children, we are told in hadith that you should teach your children this phrase as a toddler. When your children are toddlers, teach them this phrase. It's called La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Right? La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. That is something that we are told by Rasulullah to teach our children when they're toddlers. This phrase and this idea, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. There is no power except for Allah. Now, what does this statement mean? And why are we teaching this to toddlers? Why are we teaching this to kids? You see, when you look at the phrase, you're talking about Allah's power. How much is Allah's power? What is Allah's power? The first thing comes, Allah is powerful. How powerful? How much powerful? Can anyone define that? Can anyone answer that? How powerful is Allah? He is all powerful, right? Now what does all powerful mean? How much is that? Can you put a quantity on that? So it is something that what we call infinite. It is infinite. Allah is powerful to the power of infinity. Infinite. Really infinite. Okay? Allah is power to the infinite. Why are we teaching an infinite concept that is something so vague and so ambiguous to the intellect, to a child? Why are we giving him that concept? Allah is so powerful, you can't even imagine it. Why are we giving that to a child? We are told to give it to a child. Because you see, before the child starts using intellect, the first thing Islam encourages is for the child to use his imagination. Use your imagination first. Intellect will come later. Imagination is there to understand certain concepts that intellect cannot. Your aql cannot understand certain concepts. Concepts that have to do with infinity. Anything that's infinite, your mind cannot grasp it, cannot comprehend it. How many scientists have understood how big is space? If you ask scientists, how big is space? Right? There is no answer. Why is there no answer? Because they're looking at it from the point of view of intellect. They're looking at it from the point of view of intellect. That's what they're looking at it. They're not looking at it from the point of view of imagination. That's why you see that concept of space or the concept of time. Just imagine, when will time end? How long is time for? Just imagine that, not the speech. The time, the concept of time. How long does it go on for? And your mind becomes perplexed. Why? Because I don't know how long time is going to. It is infinite. So you can't think about it, but you can imagine it. You can't intellectualize it, but you can imagine it. Certain concepts intellect cannot understand that only imagination can understand. And Allah gave it as a power to us. He gave this as a power. Why? Because there are certain things we need to understand that aql cannot grasp. We need to have imagination to understand it. And one of those things is Allah.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa